I've had such amazing energetic alignment. So I know a lot of you already know, like I've talked to crossed over people, dead people all my life. I'm almost 53. I've seen dead people all my life. It's a big part of my profession as well. I have a whole separate thing that I do with that. And I also connect with spirit guides and all that stuff. That's the shaman work that I do. Here's my little shaman tattoo. And I had this great intervention that I wanted to share with you. I'm very connected with the universe. Doesn't hurt that I also practice Buddhism. I'm very grounded. I teach people grounding, all of that stuff. And so my friend Casey was over on Friday. It's like a week ago. And she came over. She gave me these beautiful 5 journals that I can use because you know my 5 journal series. If you don't, look it up on the playlist. It's very important. And so we exchanged gifts and we're talking. And earlier that day, Paul had said to me, he goes, "Oh, there's a dead rabbit in the backyard." Well, I know it sounds terrible, but dead rabbits actually signify in spiritual, in shaman culture and different things, great things. Believe it or not, it does. So it helps with like rebirth, regrowth. And so, and he's a preacher's kid. So like, he knows, he's been with me for 18 years. He's seen me in action. He's like, "Oh my God, you have done things and seen things that nobody could ever explain." And he understands. Everybody in his family knows what I do. I was dragged through the mud in the 70s and 80s, a serious amount of religious trauma. So like, seriously, like nothing bothers me. I'm like, listen, I know what I do. I know I'm good at my job, blah, blah, blah. So then I was like, okay, I want to realign, and I always like to kind of restructure. What are things that are working for me? Where are things that are, say, not working? They're just stalled, or what do I need to change, right? We should all grow. So the dead rabbit was there earlier. I was like, okay, so that means I got to do some work. And of course I talked to my spirit guides and stuff. And my one guy, my chief, is with me all the time. And so Casey was over, and I have Alexa, I have Google, I have all these things. And so we're sitting in my living room. So it's like, I'm trying to give you a dynamic here. So it's like my living room and kitchen kind of are all together. Then there's like a little tiny, there's like a hallway. And then there's like my office, my whole office area. And so Google sits over there. She's not even part of like what's happening. And so in the middle, we're talking, and we're actually, and she's done a lot of spiritual work and a lot of spiritual growth. We went to Ireland together. She took me to Ireland on a trip, and a very, very spiritual moment. And so we're talking, it's like 9:30. And Google comes on in there. I thought it was Sienna singing, and I was like, "Oh my God, her voice sounds so good." So did Casey. She's like, "Is that Sienna?" I was like, "I don't know." It wasn't. It was Google, and it was in the middle of a song called "It's Okay" by Karuk. And so picked up in the middle of the song, and I was like, "Hey, come over here. Let's listen to this." And so the song plays, and it really is talking about where I am. And then, of course, afterwards, I flipped all my cards. I have various amounts of tarot decks that I don't even need to use, but I like to flip them for myself. So it all aligned, right? So Paul came downstairs. He's like, and Sienna came downstairs, like, "What is happening? Why are things turning on?" I've been known to blow light bulbs. I've been known in people's houses. It just comes with my vibe. And so we went through it, wrote it all down. And I was like, wow, see, you have to remember that if you're going to ask for guidance, if you're going to ask for answers, they're never actually going to be direct, especially when it comes to the universe and getting messages. It's not going to be like, "Hey girl, this is what you need to do." It's going to give you this for you to pause, be mindful, and take note. So that's kind of where I am. So what I'm going to be doing here, and I think I said this before on my YouTube, starting next week, which is next year, is I'm going to create a sort of a theme for each month. And each month is going to have a theme. And so each video is going to be tailored to that theme. So it's going to be in playlists. It's going to tell you, so you can pull it back and see it. So I'm going to really do that over here. And I'm contemplating with my Patreon. Right now I have 2 tiers. So like I have my regular podcast. It's very, very informative. And then I do have my Patreon. And I love my Patreon because I give you a starting point. I give you a worksheet. Because it's great to say self-love, boundaries. And you're like, yay. How the hell do I start that? Well, so that's what the Patreon is. Right now I have 2 tiers. And I'm playing on if I want to just do 1 tier, there's certain things I'm working on. And I'm telling you all of this to say to you, you have to be willing to be open to what you're receiving. You got to put your ego aside. You say, what's working for me? What's not working for me? Where do I need to go? Again, I do think I'm going to jump in a little bit more back to the basics of a lot of the things that I've done, still do all of the coaching work, still do all of that. but I really do a lot of spiritual work, right? Not religious. I've had an enormous amount of religious trauma by being raised Southern Baptist. No. And I have a whole podcast on that. And, it's funny though. So I do get a lot of messages. Yes, I've done a lot of demonology work where I go in and I help cleanse things if it's become very problematic. And so I feel like there's definitely, a lot of times people aren't ready for those conversations. I'm not going to be for everybody, and neither are you. But, it's a big part to what I do. My first book, Seeing Through Veils, is on grief. And I am finishing my second book. Like it has a start time. I mean, start to really wrap it up, and a finish time, right? So I think what I'm going to do going into next year, is I think that entire year is going to be on goal setting, meal planning, kind of that. And each month is going to have a different thing. So I would encourage you, if that's your jam, please subscribe to the channel. You may want to also subscribe to the podcast. It's the exact same name, The Positivity Experience. And if you want to go deeper, I can. I have an intuitive option on my website. I do a lot of large groups for medium work, but it always carries a part of coaching. So that's what I do, and that's who I am, right? And that's just how it's going to be. And that might work for people, and it might not. I don't care what you believe in. I don't care what you align with. I know what my truth is, and it's very, very helpful to other people who see things, but then they don't want to see them, and then they want to see them, and then they read more into things, and you're trying too hard to control it. And let me be the first to tell you, you'll never control the universe. And the universe, you're not, when you're in the 5 journal series, mandatory if you really want to make this change. I promise you it is helpful. So many people go, oh my God, I don't want to write that down. What if I breathe life into that? The universe already knows how you feel, right? You're not psyching the universe out. You're not psyching anybody out by not writing it down. You're not bringing that into your life. That's not how it works. I will say, if you stay in negativity, you're holding on to negativity. You're holding on to grief. I didn't say not having it, but you're holding on to grief. You're holding on to the traumas. You're holding on to resentments and anger and a place of lack where you don't have. These are things that I specialize in. And I feel like I need to go a little deeper in that with you guys. So stay tuned if that's your jam. But yes, I'm very happy. I typically have these awakenings a lot. Like I said, I've blown lights in people's houses and different stores. It's just sort of the vibe. So I'm all about the vibration. And when I tell you other people's opinion of you does not matter, it does not matter. The amount of things that I went through, now you can turn on a TikTok or you can go to YouTube and people are like, oh, let me do readings for you. Yeah, I was doing that in the 70s and 80s and I was like a demon, right? And it was all but tried to be exorcised out of me. So anything anybody could ever say to me online would never affect me. It's so irrelevant. Anything people can say to me in person would never affect me. It is so irrelevant. And I want to get you there. But in order to get you there, you're going to have to be willing to be the villain. You're going to have to be willing to let people be upset with you. You're going to have to be willing to distance from things that does not serve you. So until you're ready for that, you will not make the change. Listen to a podcast, listen to 9, go to 75 hours worth of therapy. None of it matters until you're willing to be uncomfortable, till you're willing to let people think whatever the hell they want to think. And you keep going on your growth. So yeah, so that's where I am. That's what to expect. Let's do the damn thing.